Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sri Artham, and I'm really excited to share with you my company, my venture, Ganaz. So let me first start off by telling you a little bit about myself. I have a really huge family tree. My dad was the youngest of 17. My mom was the youngest of 7. Yeah, I had 24 aunts and uncles, including my parents. So I have hundreds of cousins, and it's just, I don't know many of them. But the biggest thing that distinguishes them from me is they were all born in India, in rural villages where they had limited access to drinking water, electricity, or even indoor plumbing. And I grew up in Toronto. I was the first in my family to be grown in the West. And, I had a really amazing life. And my only role in that was that I was lucky. And I think there's something unjust about that, that everyone should have the opportunity to live the great life that I had growing up, and probably that most of you had growing up. So that's my hope. I spent most of the past 10 years working in agriculture, working in sustainable agriculture. And one of the things I learned during that time is that if you want to help the world's poor, the best way to do that is in agriculture. There's over 1 billion people in the world who live in poverty working in agriculture. So that's what my aim through Ganaz. Now that sounds like a great social mission probably, right? It sounds like a great charity or something that Bill Gates should be working on. But I think this is a great business opportunity. I'm going to explain to you why. So it might be really hard to be a farm worker. It's also not great being a farmer. It's really hard to find workers. So this sign, which is a sign to find farm workers, it says, looking for pickers, call this number. This is not from the 70s. This is not from somewhere in rural Mexico. That's this year in Washington State. This is how people find farm workers. It's signs on the side of the road. It's signs in laundromats. It's radio ads. It's really old school. So if we can help farmers find the best workers, or we can help workers find the best jobs, we can help everyone out. So that's our aim. So why is this in particular important? Because last year, 10% of fields in the U.S. looked like this, because farmers knew they couldn't find enough workers. There was about a $3 billion food shortage in the U.S. in terms of what could be grown. And you can imagine with the current administration, it's going to be even harder to find workers this year. So that number is going to grow. So here's how we help farmers out. We have an app, and farmers can do 3 things with it. They can post jobs to recruit workers. They can communicate with their workforce, most importantly, they get their workforce to keep coming back year after year. And so you can see it's pretty simple. In the middle panel, you can see how this fake farm, Robinson Family Farms, is able to post a couple of jobs for picking berries and weeding. And they can communicate with their workforce, which is actually kind of a big deal because once you think about it, it might make sense that most farm owners only speak English, and in the US, most farm workers speak Spanish. So to be able to communicate with their workforce is actually a game changer. Now, for the workers, we also want to help them out. So this is pretty cool. Whenever we show a farm worker this app, their eyes light up because they can see in that first panel all the jobs around them. Suddenly, what was invisible before is visible to them. They can see what jobs are around them, how much they pay, and maybe what kind of skill fit there might be. So in the middle panel, you can see where they click on the job, learn a little bit more about that farm and what benefits they offer. And if they take the job, they can communicate with their employer in Spanish, which is doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but it's a pretty big game changer for a farm worker. So we started just this year. We started in May. We're pretty early on the journey compared to many other pitches you might hear today. We launched our MVP in May. We tested our product up in Hood River, Oregon on the Columbia Gorge, which is like an hour east of Portland. And we got to about 10 or 20 farms. We got to about 5 or 10% of the workforce there. It was a pretty good test. So we're now working on scaling up. We're focused on California and Arizona. Actually, Arizona is kind of where most of the growing is going on right now in the country. And we've started to work with one of the largest lettuce growers in the country, one of the largest berry growers in the country, and we're getting our first revenues as well. Most importantly to me as an entrepreneur, or very important, is that we have enough money. We've raised enough money to stay viable for about the next year or so, and planning to raise a seed round mid next year. So that's our revenue growth. Our user growth on this axis here. So last thing I just wanted to share was a little bit about me and my partner, Hannah Freeman. We both worked at Fairtrade USA together. We were category leads, so we were on the executive team. And we collectively, I led the consumer packaged goods team, and Hannah led the Fairtrade produce team. So if you ever bought a Fairtrade banana, or a pineapple, or a chocolate bar, or Fairtrade tea, that was us. That was us in our teams. And collectively last year, that was a $3.5 billion market. So our hope is to repeat that success and actually go past it. And I'm hoping that you guys are excited by our vision, and will see that we want to help improve the lives of over 1 billion farm workers. And if you're able to help us, we'd love to have you join us. Thank you.
So in this two-sided market of workers and farmers, I understand the worker side. How do you expect to scale with the farmers?
Yeah, great question, because that's the worker side is proving surprisingly easy. We're using Facebook ads to get to farm workers, and all farm workers have smartphones now, so that works really well. On the farmer side, it's more through relationships, getting good press, getting good word of mouth, being at conferences, that sort of thing.
And do you have any competition that does a similar offering?
There's one app that kind of seems like someone's hobby that they started out in Michigan. So it's not in Spanish, for example. It's a web app. That's the only other thing out there. If you're a farmer and you want workers right now, you have two choices. If you can't, other than putting up signs by the side of the road, you hire a recruiter, and that recruiter takes like 30 to 40% off the top. So it's about $1,000 to $2,000 on a typical harvesting season. Or you you get workers up from Mexico through the H-2A program, and that costs again $1,000 to $2,000 because you've got to pay for housing, transportation costs, etc.
Is there a translation customer value proposition that you message to your customers on the farmer side?
Yeah. So we charge for two things. We charge for posting jobs, so just like a Craigslist or Glassdoor or ZipRecruiter, and we charge if you want to use our messaging service that has translation built in. So it's a subscription.
How are you dealing with the migrant workforce that's not on the regular payroll?
Yeah.
Are you seeing a challenge in getting into those markets?
It's easy enough to target the workers. What's important is that we have their trust, because like you're hinting at, about half the workforce is here illegally if they're undocumented. So that means most importantly for us in our relationship with them is we collect almost no personal identifiable information about them. We just collect a phone number and a 4-digit password. So even if someone wanted to come and look at our data, there's not much they'd learn from it.
In terms of, you were talking about the food shortage and fields that went, how much of that do you attribute to federal government subsidies to farmers not to farm their land, and how much is actually the worker shortage? Because there is a component of both.
That's fair, yeah. And you might even have water shortages or other reasons that you might leave your farm fallow. The $3 billion figure I quoted is specifically due to farmers not being able to find enough workers.
One last question. Is there any advantage to you reaching greater national scale to the farmers, or they just care about their own region?
I don't know if I understand the
So
question.
if you reach scale with more farmers, does that help you become more defensible in any way?
Absolutely, yeah. If we can get more farmers on there, then we'll have all the best jobs posted, and that gets us the most workers. And in a two-sided marketplace, if we can get there first, it's pretty defensible. Right? It's really hard to be a second mover in a marketplace.